What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, live for your AFC Championship, NFC Championship, Conference Championship, preview, predictions, and of course, I'm going to give you my in-depth thoughts on each matchup, both sides of the football, offense, defense, and talk about the matchups that will dictate and determine these two football games that will ultimately decide who will make the Super Bowl, who will come out of the AFC, who will come out of the NFC. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for joining me live. Before I get started and before I break down the Niners and the Rams, as well as the Chiefs and the Bengals, make sure that you do spike that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more BLV just like this. And also get in that comment section and let me know who is going to win these games. Also, Gronk, spike that notification bell if you haven't already. Of course, I'll be live for both the AFC Championship and the NFC Championship. So, Gronk, spike that notification bell and you'll be notified when I go live for both of those games. Okay? Now, before we get started, guys, I do want to give a shout out right off the top to Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is doing some really cool things right now in the playoffs. I actually have been in a couple of the tournaments on Underdog throughout the playoffs, and I got eliminated last week, unfortunately, but I did win a nice prize at Underdog playing some of the tournaments over there, and I always talk about Underdog. It's my favorite fantasy platform, and they're really, really doing a great job over there. And right now, they've got really, really cool offers. So if you're missing fantasy football at the moment, my favorite way to play on Underdog Fantasy, which the link is in the description, use the code BLV when you sign up, is to use their pick'ems. So essentially on the pick'ems, you can use, 2 or 3 or 4 different over-unders, so to speak. So let's just say, for example, you could go like Jimmy Garoppolo, over or under passing yards. You could combine that with Deebo Samuel, total yards, over or under. And you can basically double your money, triple your money, quadruple your money over on Underdog Fantasy. So it's really fun, the pick'ems over there. And I'm actually going to show you guys at the end of the video how it works. I'm going to give you a pick'em. I haven't actually looked to decide what I'm going to do this week, but at the end that I break down all these videos, stick around and I'm going to give you my pick'em for the week, because that's something that I'm definitely looking forward to doing on Underdog Fantasy. So make sure to check it out. Link is in the description. Use the code BLV when you sign up. And they're doing some very special things. They actually told me they're doing some very cool things for the Super Bowl. So make sure that you sign up before the Super Bowl. Link in the description. Check out Underdog Fantasy for yourself. I promise you, it is worth it. It's a lot of fun over there. So go check it out. All right. We'll get to more on Underdog Fantasy later on. But let's say hello to the people first, okay? What's going on, Becca? How you doing? Hector, what's up, Hector? Bodo, $50 for the Bodo, man. Thank you, Bodo. Let's check this out. Can I add this to the broadcast? There we go. Bodo with his nice tattoo there. Mitch, I want the Rams versus the Bengals, but unfortunately, I think it's going to be the Niners versus the Chiefs. Interesting picks from Bodo. Thank you so much to the GOAT himself, the legend of the BLV, Bodo Winter. Becca says, don't forget to become a member. Yes, Becca, 100%. I got used to you wearing a sweatshirt, so the t-shirt threw me off. Yeah, I'm like, I can't keep wearing hoodies. Actually, this is what went through my head, Becca. I was like, I can't keep wearing hoodies because the people are going to think I only wear hoodies every day. So I'm going to have to change it up. So I went with a t-shirt even though it's still kind of cold outside. Hector says, what's up, bro? What's going on, Hector? John says, what is your offseason plan for the Pats? A lot of stuff. We're going to break that down when we get to the offseason, bro. Natasha says, please remember to Gronk spike the like button, everybody. Natasha knows what she's talking about. Gronk spike the like button. Isaac says, I'm late. I'm always late. What do you expect? Samuel says, what's up? What's up, Samuel? How you doing, man? Deshaun, Singh, Forever Pats Nation. Thank you guys all for joining. And let's get rocking. The one thing I will say about Wednesday picks, I like to put a lot of time and effort and try to get as many, stats and things on these different matchups as possible. And I'm usually one of the first people to actually pick the games, doing them on Wednesdays. So that is the one thing I will say. A lot of the times I'm kind of like rushing to get everything together because it's a very quick turnaround emotionally to go from all these games on a Sunday and then flip back to a Wednesday throughout the playoffs. But luckily, there's only 2 matchups, so I spent all my time in these 2 matchups. I went back to watch both of the games for the Niners and Rams. I watched the Bengals and the Chiefs. I took notes on all the matchups, and then I went back and I said what has changed from there, injury-wise, also in terms of what I think might take place during this game, because what do you know but more playoff rematches for this week. So we have a rematch of a divisional matchup between the Niners and the Rams, which is personally my favorite game this week. And then we have a rematch from week 17, which was the Bengals and the Chiefs. And the interesting thing about this is that we have rematches that are late in the season as well. So the Niners and the Rams game, the last time they played was actually week 18, which for the 49ers was essentially a playoff game. So essentially, we've already seen these 2 teams in a playoff game. It wasn't really a playoff game for the Rams, but it was, don't mistake it, a playoff game for the 49ers. And the Rams fought and tried in that game to knock them out. So essentially, we've already seen a playoff game between the Niners and the Rams, which is very unique. And we've seen a game that dictated whether the Bengals would win the division or be a wild card team, essentially, in week 17 between the Bengals and the Chiefs. So these games we've seen very recently with high stakes, which I think makes it really, really fascinating from that perspective. So yeah, let's get to it, and let's start with the Bengals and the Chiefs, guys. If you are in the Discord, first, if you're not in the Discord, get in the Discord. Link is in the description. If you are in the Discord, make sure to leave the link in the Discord so that everybody can come into the live chat and we can talk some games here. All right. Okay. Last thing before I even get to the Chiefs and the Bengals. This is something that I found very interesting throughout the week. So from a betting perspective, if any of you guys follow me for the betting content, from a betting perspective, there is some pretty interesting trends in terms of making money on Conference Championship Sunday, okay? So when it comes to this weekend in particular, straight up winners this weekend for the AFC and NFC Championship are also 38-2. 38-2 against the spread. Okay? So pick the winner of this week and essentially you will cover. Okay? In the last 7 years, the home team is 11-3 in this spot. Okay? So it heavily helps home teams in the AFC and NFC Championship game. Over the last 15 AFC Championship games, the home team is 13-2. So especially in the AFC, it helps to have the home field. Not saying it's impossible for the road team to win, but it's highly likely that the home team will win. In fact, the Chiefs have played, this will be their 4th consecutive AFC Championship game. They have played 3 AFC Championship games, all at home, right? They played the Patriots, the Titans, and then the Bills, and now they're playing the Bengals, right? They lost one of those games. So they're 2-1. They're one of the teams that actually lost in this spot. They lost the Patriots. But I wouldn't say that the Titans the Bills or the Bengals were on the Tom Brady Patriot level, okay? Just to say that much. But, yeah, that's very interesting. That if you want to pick a winner this week, if you are betting this week, just pick who you think's going to win the game, and most likely you will make money this weekend. So just keep that in mind, okay? So, let's start with the AFC Championship. This is the first AFC Championship appearance for the Bengals since 1988, which was 8 years before I was born. Long time ago. And I believe the Bengals in that game advanced to play Joe Montana. So that's how long ago it's been. That's how long it's been for the Bengals to be in this game. Not just to win the game, but to be in the game. 1988, okay? And this is the fourth straight appearance for the Chiefs. You know what's crazy? I was thinking about this too. It's crazy. Like, it is a heck of a feat to go 4 straight AFC Championship games. That's extremely impressive. I was thinking about it earlier today. I'm like, bro, my Patriots went to 10 straight AFC Championship games. From 2011 to 20, or not 10 straight, but like 8 straight or 9 straight. From 2011 to 2018. That's insane. Can the Chiefs do that? We'll find out. They're halfway. So they're halfway there. That's pretty incredible that what the Patriots were doing looking back at it. But the Chiefs are that team that are trying to do their own Patriot impression and get there. Another point I have about this game that I think is interesting from a psychological perspective is the Chiefs in terms of beating the Bills, right? So the Chiefs beat the Bills last week. And everybody was talking about that game as if it was the AFC Championship. And I don't know if you've ever played sports before, but those of you that have played, let's say in, I don't know, like anything really where you're in some sort of tournament setting, playoff setting, right? And you have to go against a team that you think is really difficult the round before you actually ultimately have to win the whole thing or advance in the playoffs, right? So let's just say you play a team that usually gives you a really tough time in the second round, but you realize that you still have 2 more rounds to go, kind of like the Chiefs. Sometimes when you beat a team early in the playoffs that you find or that is being billed as a more difficult matchup, it's sometimes psychologically the team that comes from that victory can come out a little bit slow. And that's something I'll be watching in this game. Now, I think the interesting thing about this is this would be a bigger factor to me if the Chiefs beat the Bengals earlier in the year. To say like, okay, Kansas City already beat the Bengals earlier this year. They're clearly the better team. They're clearly going to walk all over Cincinnati. But at least Kansas City's had that where they lost to the Bengals. So there is that revenge factor coming into this game. Because I think there would be a lot psychologically to say, like, the Bengals aren't as good as the Bills in many people's minds. So we should easily walk into this game and win, right? So I feel like, just from a psychological perspective, I'm intrigued to watch how Kansas City comes out to start this game. Because that could give the Bengals the edge they need to potentially pull off the upset here, is if they start faster and they come out with that psychological edge of the underdog that nobody believes we're going to win this game. Because quite frankly, the spread is 7 points. Not a lot of people, in an AFC Championship game, it's rare that we see a spread this large. And not a lot of people actually believe that Cincinnati is going to beat Kansas City. So that is a factor to me just from a psychological perspective. Now, from injuries perspective, we have Tyrann Mathieu, who did not practice Wednesday with a concussion. I would say this about Tyrann Mathieu. He is essential to this team. If the Chiefs are going to win this game, they need Tyrann Mathieu in the lineup. They need Tyrann Mathieu because they're playing Joe Burrow and a receiving core that is absolutely big play, oriented, and explosive. And without that free safety and also nickel defender and hybrid defender and leader and communicator that Tyrann Mathieu is, without him to potentially take on CJ Uzomah in some matchups and then also cover deep on top of Ja'Marr Chase in certain plays, that is going to be a massive loss. And the reason I say that is not just because of how good Tyrann Mathieu is from a mental and physical standpoint, but also because he is a lot better than the guy replacing him. If Daniel Sorensen becomes a primary asset and a primary player for this Chiefs defense, we've seen how much worse this defense gets when Daniel Sorensen is on the field. We even saw it versus the Bills last week, and Daniel Sorensen had some really bad plays in the Bengals game the first time they played. So I'll say that Tyrann Mathieu is huge for this game. If he doesn't play, the Bengals, to me, have a very realistic chance of winning this game. I'll say that it is a concussion. I would assume that he plays, but he needs to be able to practice by Friday. If he doesn't practice by Friday, it's going to be tough. Then maybe he's cleared on Saturday. So that's something to definitely watch. In terms of the Bengals, we know that Larry Ogunjobi is out for the season, so he won't be playing. He was the lone player that I look at the first game and say, okay, he was playing, he's not playing now. Cam Sample, the defensive end, backup rotation player, did not practice today. Everyone else is seemingly healthy on both sides, so I feel like we're going to get a pretty close lineup that we got from Week 17 on both sides, because both teams were pretty healthy on both sides of the ball in the first game, okay? So the last time they played, it was 34-31 Cincinnati. This game was in Cincinnati, the jungle. One of the games where I thought they were very loud. It was clearly a very big game for the Bengals, and they won the division by winning this game. Week 17, okay? Looking back at both quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes had a good game, but not a great game. 259 yards, 2 touchdowns, 113.9. Pretty average Mahomes performance considering his standards. Joe Burrow, on the other hand, had an epic performance. 446 yards, 4 touchdowns, and over a 148 passer rating. So he was lights out and he was phenomenal. I did this game. If you want to go back and just for fun, maybe you're a Bengals or a Chiefs fan, go back and watch my live stream reactions to that game, and you can maybe get a sense of how the second game might go just based on my thoughts throughout the game. Ja'Marr Chase, you might remember, set a single game NFL rookie record with 266 receiving yards. He's probably not going to be able to replicate that this time around, but it just so shows that Ja'Marr Chase is a problem for this secondary, and nobody in the Chiefs secondary can cover him one-on-one. Not many players in the NFL can cover him one-on-one. Something that I found interesting from the box score. The Chiefs found 10 different receivers in this game the first time around. So 10 different receivers received a pass from Patrick Mahomes in the first game, which is sort of rare. I feel like it's mostly Kelsey and Hill and then a sprinkle of everybody else. But the first game was actually pretty spread the wealth around. Chris Jones had 2 sacks in the first game. He is the primary pass rusher for the Chiefs that you got to worry about. The Chiefs sacked Joe Burrow a total of 4 times in the game, and I thought that was interesting coming off of a game where he was sacked 9 times by Tennessee. I wanted to look back at that stat in particular. Joe Mixon caught 7 catches, 7 passes in the game, which is a high total, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that the Bengals were chasing for a majority of the game, because the game was 28-17 Kansas City at the half. So something that people forget about that game is Kansas City was in control. Kansas City looked like the team that was going to win the game, and they looked like the superior team, 28-17 at the half on the road. And then it spiraled from there. Something I will say about this game is the Bengals ended up winning it, right? 34-31 or whatever it was. But Mahomes wasn't picked off in the game despite throwing multiple turnover-worthy plays where he should have been picked off multiple times in the game. Go back, watch the game for yourself. He should have thrown 2 or 3 interceptions that were dropped or that just didn't result in an interception, okay? So it went from 28-17 to 31-28 for the Bengals with 11:41 left in the game. So Kansas City actually only ended up scoring 3 points in the second half of the game. And it was 31-31, which that is where the game became very fascinating. It went to a 3rd and 27 for the Bengals. 3rd and 27, and the Bengals convert a 3rd and 27. Spagnuolo sends an all-out pressure. Burrow hits a sideline, down the right sideline fade to Jamar Chase for the conversion. So that was the big game-changing play that won the Bengals the game. There were a lot of flags in this game for both sides, really, especially at the end of the game in favor of the Bengals. It will be interesting to see how the refs call this game, because going back and watching it, there were a lot of holding calls, but a lot of the holding calls were very deserved. Like, it was very deserving that Cincinnati got those first downs, because the Chiefs couldn't cover the Bengals, and that was blatantly obvious from anybody that watched the game. So it will be interesting to see if the Chiefs, the amount of man coverage that they play, can get away with more holding in this game than they did in the regular season, because it is the playoffs and teams do get away with stuff like that more often. And another interesting stat that I found was that Cincinnati was only 2 for 7 on 3rd down entering the 4th quarter when the Bengals were only down by 4 points. So figuring that, the Bengals didn't really have a lot of success on 3rd down. And despite that, they were still moving the ball and still made it a very entertaining game, which usually a team like the Bengals, for them to beat a superior roster in the Chiefs, you usually have to be like really fortunate or just really good on 3rd down. And that wasn't really the case for the Bengals until the very end of the game. If you guys haven't already, make sure you do Gronk spike that like button, please. Let's try to get those likes up there. Help the algorithm. Help people find this video, please. I would really, really appreciate it. Okay, let's break down both sides of the football. So starting with Cincinnati's defense versus Kansas City's offense. So the two players that absolutely torched the Buffalo Bills were Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Okay, both of these players went off. Tyreek Hill went absolutely off with 11 catches for 150 yards, a game-changing touchdown. He had a touchdown in the game. Kelce had the game-winning touchdown, had a ton of yards. Once again, a great game for both of them versus Buffalo. Interesting enough, in the game versus Cincinnati, they did not play well, to the point where they actually played 2 of their worst games of the season. And the Chiefs almost won the game. Okay, so you could look at it in one way and say that the Bengals did a really good job of taking away Hill and Kelce. And you could also look at it in an alternative way and say that the Chiefs almost won the game despite those players not having huge games. So looking at the stat sheet, right? In the Week 17 game, Kelce caught 5 of 7 targets for just 25 yards. That was his second lowest total in a game all season, even though he did have a touchdown. Okay? In the Week 17 win, the Bengals held Hill to 6 catches for 40 yards on 10 targets. So Kelce and Hill together only accounted for 65 yards in the first matchup on 17 targets. So largely both players were very inefficient. You can look at that again and say that that will happen again because the Bengals just have the personnel and the scheme to do it. Or you can say that that's certainly not going to happen again. Both of these players will have a better game. And truthfully, I think Cincinnati is a lot more equipped to slow down Tyreek Hill than they are Travis Kelce, because I feel like the free safety of Jesse Bates with his speed and the range that he has does a great job of taking away the deep ball for opposing offenses. So I think that the Bengals are a lot more equipped at slowing down Tyreek Hill, but I'm not so sure that they'll once again be able to slow down Travis Kelce. I could be wrong, but we will see, okay? So the key to me is Jesse Bates in the middle of the field, containing the deep part of the field and taking away Tyreek Hill on those vertical plays. For the Chiefs, you don't want to let Trey Hendrickson beat you. How do you lose this game if you're the Chiefs offense? You don't treat Trey Hendrickson like he's their best pass rusher by far, because he is. So whatever you got to do there, if that means you got to double him, sort of chip him with a back, or find a way to just not allow him to disrupt this game. Because Trey Hendrickson is the guy that consistently gets pressure for the Bengals. And really, he's the only guy on that D-line that I worry about challenging Mahomes and consistently getting pressure on Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs' offensive line has probably been their most underrated asset late in the season. I think they've been phenomenal. I think they were one of the biggest, they were one of the biggest differences between the Bills and the Chiefs. I thought the Chiefs' offensive line did a lot better job at protecting Mahomes than the Bills did protecting Allen. I thought Mahomes was very comfortable in the first Bengals game for a lot of it, and I felt like the Bills couldn't really get pressure on Mahomes either, and when they did, he made enough moves within the pocket to find a throw. So the Chiefs' offensive line just looks really good. It's playing really well, and I think that the Chiefs can wear down this pass rush, a pass rush that's very thin. They don't have a lot of depth. They don't have multiple waves or multiple disruptive pass rushers who can give Mahomes a lot of issues. It's really Trey Hendrickson, and DJ Reader's like a push the pocket type of guy, but he's not a super great pass rusher. He's more of a run defender. Sam Hubbard's okay. He's not fantastic. A BJ Hill is another kind of run defender more than a pass rusher. So they don't really have a ton of depth there either, especially with the kid being on the injured report. Cam Sample, he's also might not even play. So that's another layer of depth that could be missing for Cincinnati. So overall, I look at that D-line, O-line matchup as one that the Bengals can quite often be exposed in from a pass blocking perspective. I think Mahomes is going to have the ability to drop back and find his easy completions over the middle of the field to Travis Kelce and the other receivers. I would expect the Bengals to heavily focus on taking away Tyreek Hill when he runs down the field, and as much as they can. We'll see what they can do slowing down Travis Kelce once again. They did a good job in the first game, but we'll see in the second game. I think Mahomes, and this is something I said, guys, about the Mahomes performance versus Buffalo, because a lot of people were saying to me, Mitch, what the F are you talking about? Mahomes wasn't dinking and dunking. He doesn't dink and dunk. He's more than that. He's better than that. And I think people, for some reason, they hear the terms dinking and dunking and they think that's a negative connotation. It's not negative. When you look at the statistics, and I could even try to pull them up for you again, all I was alluding to was the range and the areas of the field that Patrick Mahomes was throwing the ball in. So I have the stats here still for you. So Mahomes had 2.3% of his attempts versus Buffalo that were deep, which means past 10 air yards, okay? That's the lowest rate of his career. So factually, Patrick Mahomes threw the ball short in the game. Does that mean he's overrated? No. It actually means he's become a better player. What I mean by that is he has become a more patient player. He has become more equipped to hang in the pocket, read a defense, decipher a coverage, and throw the ball in the right place. Young Patrick Mahomes would just run around and throw the ball to the open guy post-snap. Patrick Mahomes even admitted that he didn't do a good job of reading defenses. He would read a defense after the snap and not pre-snap. Mahomes is doing a better job now of taking what is there on a play, which is where the Chiefs have become much better as an offense. They have become much better throwing the ball underneath, creating yards after catch, being efficient on early downs, setting themselves up for no third down or manageable third downs, And that shows in the performance versus the Bills, where 75% of his throws were between 1 and 10 air yards, which was the highest of his career. So, just pointing that out once again for the multiple Chiefs fans who commented on my video saying that I'm an idiot because Mahomes is better than dinking and dunking. Dinking and dunking does not mean you're bad. It means you have multiple avenues to attack a defense. If everything is open underneath 5 yards, Tom Brady would throw it every single time. And if Tom Brady would throw it, then it's probably a good play. Okay? So that's all I'm trying to throw out there is about that. Okay? It's not that he still can't throw the ball down the field. He can. It's just that he has evolved. And that has made him, again, I'll say it again, a better player. Okay? Now, continuing this. I think for the Bengals to counter the Chiefs. We know what the Chiefs are going to try to do. They're going to come out. They're going to spread it underneath, throw to their playmakers, try to create yards after catch. And then from there, they're going to mix in the run, right? But they don't really want to run. They're going to mix the run in just a little bit, right? Mix it in. For the Bengals to counteract this, I think they've got to heavily rely on their defensive line to just stop the run themselves. And I thought one of the best players all weekend was DJ Reader. DJ Reader was phenomenal in the Tennessee Titans game. He was a one-man wrecking crew versus Derrick Henry. He was the reason that defense performed the way it did because he plugged up the holes, pushed the pocket, made plays on Derrick Henry, the key versus Derrick Henry is you can't let him get to the second, third level because his acceleration and his power are so overwhelming. But Derrick Henry's a guy that takes a long time to build up that speed, right? Because he's so big, it takes him time. It takes him a couple yards to get through the hole to build it up. But if you get the penetration right away with a guy like DJ Reader, you can slow that right down. And DJ Reader and BJ Hill, the two guys inside for the Bengals, are going to have great games. This front four, when the Chiefs decide to run, they've got to put a stop to it. Because if you're the Bengals, you've got to go light personnel. You've got to just take all the passes away as much as possible for you. And you've probably got to lean towards more zone coverage. Although I feel like the Bengals can mix in the odd man coverage because their cornerbacks, unlike popular belief, are actually fairly good overall. So I feel like they can play decent man coverage in certain moments. But I would say they're going to lean towards the man coverage on the spectrum when they decide to go for their calculated risks. And this is where the Bengals need to push the envelope a little bit more, which I saw them do with the Titans a little bit, which was they used some more blitzes and some more simulated pressures in moments to create a bad Ryan Tannehill. And I think for the Bengals, they've got to do this as much as possible versus Mahomes. They've got to try to attack Mahomes in different ways. But they've got to be calculated with it, right? Versus the right formations in the right down and distances. You can take your shots with certain blitzes from certain areas. And I thought Cincinnati, one of the big plays in the game was actually forcing the Chiefs to kick a field goal late in the fourth quarter. They sent a double A-gap blitz. It got to Mahomes and he had to throw the ball away. So I think the Bengals mixing in the blitz with your four-man rush so there's not so much pressure on Trey Hendrickson and Sam Hubbard to get to Mahomes consistently, because I just don't think they're going to be able to consistently get there with four. So I think you're going to need to try to spin the dial of simulating pressures and blitzing the quarterback, because if you don't and you just rely on the four-man, I think Mahomes is going to be too comfortable. He's going to sit back there. He's going to be able to dice you up. So that's the way I see it personally. From a Kansas City perspective, offensively, again, with their run game, there is opportunity if they stay patient with it. We saw that the Titans eventually in the second half were able to gash the Bengals with Foreman, of all running backs, in the game. So I do think if Kansas City can properly run the ball in this game, it's going to be game over for the Bengals, because I just don't see how their defense is going to be able to properly defend all that they have to offer in the passing game and in the running game at the same time. So one of the big X factors for this game, believe it or not, is DJ Reader, BJ Hill's ability to stop the run game before it even gets started and to make the Chiefs absolutely one-dimensional so that they can, understand that they're just going to send all these crazy simulated pressures and blitzes and just get to the pass game. Because if the Chiefs can somehow rely on their run game as well, it's just way too difficult to handle this Chiefs offense with all the RPOs, the screens, the passing concepts that they have to offer on top of Mahomes' ability to run and all that other stuff. So it's going to be challenging for the Bengals defense, but I think what we saw in the second half of the first matchup was a defense that at least I don't think will be completely overwhelmed, but where I truly see Kansas City taking advantage is I just don't know if the Bengals are going to have enough with their four-man rush to consistently disrupt Mahomes, and I think Mahomes is going to have too much time to make plays over the middle of the field. I don't think that the Bengals are going to allow him to throw the ball down the field. I think this is going to be another game where Mahomes is going to have to go through his patience and make those plays underneath on the early downs and to consistently move the ball down the field. And the Bengals are going to take their chances when they do make the odd incompletion on first or second to send a blitz when it gets to third down. So that's how I kind of see it going. I do expect more success from Kelsey than the first game, but I would expect a relatively quiet Hill game. I don't think he's going to go absolutely ham like he did versus the Bills, but he'll still probably have a decent game. Now, flipping it to the other side, Cincinnati's offense versus Kansas City's defense. This is truly the fascinating matchup of this game for me. The Chiefs' defense, the last 4 games against non-Big Ben Roethlisberger teams, okay, because I say non-Big Ben teams because Big Ben is dreadful. 30.5 points, 407.5 yards allowed. So the Chiefs, in the last 4 games that did not play the Steelers, have allowed over 30 points and over 400 yards a game. So the Chiefs defense, for as much as it's improved this season from the beginning of the year to the end, and it has, it's still very susceptible against good offenses, okay? The Bengals, one key stat for them is they are 2-4 when allowing 5+ sacks this season. So if you consistently see the Chiefs getting to Burrow, it's most likely a sign that the Chiefs will win the game. Ingram, Frank Clark, Jarron Reed, Chris Jones. That is what this game will come down to for the Kansas City Chiefs. These 4 men and their ability to disrupt Burrow and Spagnuolo's ability to send just enough in terms of the creativity with the blitz packages, the different looks, the simulated pressures, and disguising coverages in the back end to be able to throw off Joe Burrow, make him hold the ball a click longer, and then get to Joe Burrow. This is something that the Titans did very, very well. We talked about this last week. Tennessee, more than anyone in the NFL, sent more simulated pressure than anyone else. If you don't know what that means, by the way, I've said it a lot already, is essentially showing like you're going to blitz, right? Showing like you're going to send 6 people, but you only really send 4. You only really send 3. You only really send the traditional amount of pass rushers, but it looks like a bunch of people are going to send a blitz, right? So that is what I'm aiming at here. And that is something that the Titans did at a very high level and a very high rate. Tennessee can't play man coverage. They don't play it. They got shredded when they went to it versus the Bengals. Kansas City cannot afford to play man coverage. When you go back and watch the first game, Jamar Chase couldn't be stopped. Not one bit. Buffalo torched Kansas City in man coverage. And the same thing will happen again if Spagnuolo rolls out there and just plays a bunch of man press and expects to win and stop this offense. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. They're going to have to go more to a Titans defense. a Titans approach, which if the Chiefs combine the Titans game plan on defense with their offense, they're going to win this game. Like, I have no doubts about it. If they just, and they're not going to have the same sort of success that the Titans did because the Titans have a better pass rush than the Chiefs, but the Chiefs pass rush isn't bad at all. One of the surprising elements of the game last week was the Chiefs' ability to pass rush on Josh Allen and that offensive line of the Bills. I thought Melvin Ingram had a great game. So I think the Chiefs have capacity to do that. Now, when you're talking about attacking the Bengals offensive line, the biggest weakness for the Bengals offensive line is the right side of the offensive line, specifically the right tackle and the right guard. Chris Jones has lined up on the right side of opposing offensive line 60% of the time this season, so 6 out of 10 times he would line up over there. That's the major weakness of this offensive line. So you'll see Spagnuolo attack the right side consistently with different pressures, different stunts, and probably putting Chris Jones over there more often than not. The Chiefs run simulated pressure at an average rate. So what I want to see from them in this game is just ticking that up a few percentages up and playing man less. I think if you play man, you got to play 2-man. You got to play man under 2 deep, right? 2 deep zones with your safeties and man underneath. That's the only way that you can play man against this team because you don't want Burrow throwing fades for 50 yards to Jamar Chase. You just don't want that to happen. That's how you'll lose the game. I expect to see probably more like cover 2 in terms of Tampa 2 zone defense. You know, maybe mixing in a little bit more cover 3 than they typically play over there in Kansas City, but things like that, okay? Other players other than Chase for the Bengals are going to have to perform. So when I look at it, Chase is going to get his. He's going to make his plays. I would expect Charvarius Ward to be the primary cover guy on him, as well as having a lot of safety help for wherever he goes. The one thing I will say about playing more man is that you have the flexibility to help on a receiver more often, right? And this is what I've always enjoyed about the Patriots playing a lot of man, is because when you play man, you can oftentimes double the best receiver because you have man talent elsewhere. So if the Chiefs decide to go to more man like they usually do, then that means that let's say they always double Chase, right? Well, that means that Higgins and Boyd are going to have to win their matchups, and they're going to have to come up big, and they're going to have to do their Gabe Davis impressions. Can T. Higgins be the Gabe Davis for this game? That's the question to me. T. Higgins had a good game last week, 7 catches for 96 yards. And I think he could easily be the Gabe Davis of this week. You know, but that might be a win for the Chiefs. If the Chiefs are able to force Burrow to throw to Higgins more times than he throws to Chase, that might be a W. Can Mixon get it going on the ground? Can Mixon control the clock as a runner? Can Mixon convert the third downs? Can Mixon make it so that the Chiefs are scared of the Bengals just running the ball the whole game and eating the clock? Can the Bengals consistently run the ball on the Chiefs? Because if you're able to run the ball versus the 2 deep looks, you're going to force the Chiefs to come down into the box and respect Joe Mixon and the running game. So that is also an element that could be a huge X factor for this game, which I could see the Bengals having a little bit of success in that regard, but I wouldn't expect that to take over the game so much so that Spagnuolo has to change his whole game plan. And one thing that I was really disappointed in with the Bengals last week that I want to see more of this week is the underneath passing of the Bengals needs to be much greater. Because you know the Chiefs are not going to allow you to just attack down the field with Chase again in this game. So taking what's there and getting those easy yards on early downs is going to be essential for the Bengals to avoid the 3rd and longs where Chris Jones, it's 3rd and 10, Chris Jones coming for Joe Burrow and he's going to sack him like Jeffrey Simmons did. That's not going to be a good recipe for Joe Burrow, okay? So early downs and developing that short passing attack for Cincinnati is absolutely crucial for them winning this game. Now, something interesting statistically, lastly, with this matchup on offense for the Bengals is that if Burrow does face two safety shells, he could turn to a lot of intermediate passes where he's been very good this season. He's been the best in the NFL in every metric on passes from 10 to 19 air yards since week 7, including a passer rating of 154.4. Burrow could continue to feed Joe Mixon. Over the last 4 games, he has amassed 23 receptions out of the backfield, including 189 yards. So, Mixon in the passing game, Mixon in the run game, a little bit of CJ Uzoma, and a lot of intermediate short passes for the Bengals to pick up some yak and get the ball quick to their playmakers and avoid what happened last week. If the Bengals fall into a game where they played like they did versus the Titans, where they're trying to go for home runs, the Chiefs are going to win because eventually they're going to get a stop, and eventually Mahomes is going to run up the score to the point where it's not going to be able for you to win the game. So the Bengals' only hope is winning a shootout, really. Their defense could make a couple stops, and they've got to catch the ball when it hits their hands this time because they dropped 2 interceptions in the first game. But ultimately, I just think the Chiefs are the better team. I view the Bengals as one of those like Andrew Luck Colts teams. I said this in my NFL review show. I think they're over their head at this point. They're a little bit outmatched at this point. And again, guys, this is somebody that's picked against the Bengals multiple times already. So I could be dead wrong. And truthfully, I want Cincinnati to win the game. There is no doubt. They're an incredible story. I just don't view them as being good enough, okay? I don't view them as being good enough. I don't view them as having a good enough overall roster, especially on the offensive line and defensive line. If they had a better 4-man rush, if they were better at protecting Joe Burrow, they could realistically beat this team. But I just don't think that their pass rush is going to consistently get enough pressure, and I don't think they're going to consistently be able to protect Joe Burrow well enough for them to pull off the upset again versus Kansas City. So Kansas City should win this game. I'm going to go with something a little bit closer. I think a lot of people are picking a blowout. I want to see something entertaining. So I'm going to go with 34-27. And realistically, the way Joe Burrow is playing and his weapons are playing, this game could be really close. And I think that's the way they've played is worthy of that respect. So Kansas City's defense is certainly not very good. Cincinnati can have some success on offense. I just don't think it's going to be to the capacity and the consistency of what Mahomes is going to be able to do in this game. So I will take the Chiefs by a touchdown, 34-27. If I had to decide either way on who I would take to cover, I would take the Chiefs because, as I said earlier, if you're picking the winner, you're probably picking the spread guy as well, the spread cover machine, and that is the team that often wins, so I'm going to go with the Chiefs in this spot as well. Okay. So that is the first matchup. I think is going to be entertaining, but I do view the Bengals as the least deserving team this conference championship Sunday of being here in this spot. Truthfully, honestly, okay? If you guys haven't already, make sure that you do. Gronk, spike that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more BLV just like this. Becca says it's time for the better game now. All right, Niners fans. All right, Rams fans. We have come to the moment of truth. Who will I pick? That is the moment of truth because I love both of your fan bases. I like both of these teams. I have a ton of respect for both of these coaches. I think they're two of the best going. I actually love them so much that I literally just listened to their interview of about an hour and a half before the season from July where McVay interviewed Kyle Shanahan. If you guys haven't seen that, by the way, it's on The Ringer. You can check it out. It's really good stuff if you're fascinated about Kyle Shanahan or Sean McVay. Definitely check it out. But yeah, I like both of these teams. I think they're both awesome, and I think they have both a chance to represent the NFC and win the Super Bowl, win the whole thing if they get there. So let's get started with the 49ers and the Rams. The Rams are, in a majority of places from what I've seen, still favored by 3.5, which is slightly surprising being that the Niners have dominated this rivalry and that 3.5 is just a lot of points. That hook is essential in a game that is a third time this year playing each other and such a close game that is tough to pick. I think 3.5 is certainly difficult to see why the number is still at 3.5. Okay, so let's break down the 49ers and the Rams. Injury-wise, Deebo Samuel and George Kittle have been talked about a lot in terms of their injuries. They are not on the injury report for the 49ers as of today. Trent Williams did not practice, but Kyle Shanahan is quoted of saying he believes he will play, and so do I. Now, looking at the did not practice and the limited participants this week, many of them come from the Rams side. Joseph Noteboom, surprisingly, did not practice today. Greg Gaines did not practice. Van Jefferson did not practice, and all of them were noted with an injury. These were not resting players. These were actual injuries. Limited, Andrew Whitworth could be playing this week. Wasn't playing versus the Bucs, which would be huge if Noteboom can't play because then you would be missing both tackles. Taylor Rapp was limited with a concussion, hasn't played in 2 weeks during the playoffs, didn't play versus the Bucs, would be a big get at safety this week. Did play in week 18. And Ambry Thomas, the rookie cornerback, was limited for the 49ers, did not play versus the Packers, and would be a huge get versus Odell Beckham and company. He played great in that second matchup. So, this game to me is going to be really, really, really good. And I want to go through a nice little graphic that Becca sent me because Becca was nice enough to send it. So I'm gonna give you the stats for Jimmy Garoppolo and Matthew Stafford, okay? So this season, head-to-head, Jimmy Garoppolo, of course, has won both matchups over the Rams this year. He had a 75% completion percentage compared to Matthew Stafford's 64% completion percentage in both games. That's significant to me because 75% is very impressive. Usually, I'm not a big completion percentage guy, but 75% is a very high number. Passing yards per game, Garoppolo actually had more than Stafford this season in both matchups, 249 to 240. 3 touchdowns to 2 interceptions for Jimmy, and 4 touchdowns to 4 interceptions for Stafford, and a much better passer rating for Jimmy Garoppolo in both games than Stafford, 108 to 78. That's a 30-point passer rating difference in the 2 matchups between Garoppolo and Stafford, and it favors Garoppolo. Who would have thunk it? But Garoppolo has been the better quarterback statistically in both games. Now, what I will say about that, I thought Jimmy specifically played very, very well in the first game and played really, really well at the end of the second game, okay? The end of the second game. I thought he had some issues at the beginning of the game, but was really good in the second game. I went back, I watched the second game. You can kind of throw out the first game because it was so long ago and it was such a decisive blowout in favor of the Niners on Monday Night Football that I just wanted to look at the latest matchup, which was a game where the Rams were up 17-0. The Niners stormed all the way back and essentially outscored the Rams 27-3 for the remainder of the game and won 27-24, I believe. Or it might have been 24-21. No, 24. I don't remember. Regardless, I believe it was 27-24. I could be wrong. But yeah, so the Niners completely just came back and annihilated the Rams in the second half. This is the third time they're playing, obviously, and everyone's heard this statistic that Kyle Shanahan owns Sean McVay. He's won 6 in a row, all of this stuff. A couple of them have been dominant fashion, and more of them have been in pretty close fashion. The Rams, when you look at both of these teams' playoff runs, the Rams have been very impressive throughout their playoff run. They beat the Bucs and they were in control of that game for a majority of the time and kind of fumbled it away to allow the Bucs to come back. And then On the flip side, the 49ers have beat some good opponents, right? They beat the Cowboys in Dallas. They beat the Packers in Lambeau. But it wasn't super impressive. Like, a lot of people would argue that the Packers should have beat the Niners, that the Cowboys could have beat the Niners, all this stuff. But the Rams have been the team that have been thoroughly dominant in both games for a majority. You know, even though the Rams tried to give the game to Tom Brady, which does concern me, by the way. It does concern me that the Rams were trying to give the game to Tom Brady, of all people. Like, I get it. Like, you're running the ball and you're fumbling and it's unlucky, but like, you keep putting the same running back out on the field. You keep making mistakes and affording Tom Brady an opportunity to come back. So that does scare me a little bit, because if you're going to close a game, you better close it against TB12. That's all I'm going to say about that. But let's take a look at a few of these stats for these matchups. So I went back and I wanted to look at, like, what happened for the Rams in that second game where they were up 17-0, and then for whatever reason, they just completely got derailed and fell apart. So I think the biggest thing I can look at in this game, in the second game, which was week 18, is that the Rams, really, it was just Matthew Stafford was playing unbelievable in really tough situations in the first half of the second game. And what happened in the second half was that he just wasn't able to replicate what he was doing in the first half. Okay? So looking at the first half of that game, you go back, you look at the drives for the Rams. 3rd and 12, Stafford converts. 3rd and 9, Stafford converts. 3rd and 4, 3rd and 2, convert. 3rd and 8, convert. 4th and 1, convert. So, essentially, in the first half, every time the Rams faced a 3rd down or a 2nd and long where Stafford was forced to throw and convert, in the first half, he was converting. He was making the throw, he was making the play, and in those situations, they were coming through. In the second half, that wasn't what was happening. In the second half, he just couldn't keep that train rolling, right? 3rd and 6, punt. 3rd and 16, punt. 3rd and 10, turning into a 4th and 12 off a sack. Punt. Okay? So, and I go back and I watch that game, guys. This is something that stands out to me time after time after time, every time I watch the Niners play the Rams. The Niners whoop the crap out of the Rams every time they play. The Niners D-line in that second game and the Niners O-line just dominated the second half of the game. It was thoroughly dominant. Time after time after time, pressure in Stafford's face, pocket collapsed, and then on the flip side, the Niners just downhill, steamroll the Rams D-line, getting 5 yards a carry. Like, the first game was unbelievable how the Niners pushed the Rams D-line around the turf, up and down the field. It was just thoroughly dominant. But going back and watching that second half, the biggest thing that changed was the Niners just started beating the crap out of the Rams at the line of scrimmage. And a lot was made out of the Rams' ability to rush Tom Brady and get to Tom Brady and to protect Matthew Stafford. But I will say, styles make fights, and the Bucs have shown that whenever they play the Rams have a better capacity to rush Tom Brady than they do of Matthew Stafford, and that the protection for Matthew Stafford is always better in those games. So I wouldn't look at the Bucs and the Niners as a 1-for-1 if you're a Rams fan and say, we stop the Bucs front, we can block the Niners. We got after Tom, we can get after Jimmy. I think those would be incorrect assessments, because when you look at the games where the Niners and the Rams have played, the Niners have just dummied the Rams time after time after time. I can't specifically tell you why that is. It's just the case. It just has been happening every time in the run and the pass game, right? So you look at the Rams last time they played the Niners, 2 yards per carry in the run game. 2. They ran for 2 yards per carry. And this is something that the Rams can ill afford to do. The Rams cannot come out and play the Niners like they're the Cardinals. They have to treat the Niners as if they're the Bucks. They have to come out on early downs and throw the ball. They cannot come out and try to run the ball. If you're going to do that, I'm telling you right now, the Niners are going to sack Stafford multiple times on third down, and you're going to be forced to punt. You're going to get Stafford in bad down and distances, and that's where you can see him throw interceptions. We saw the statistics last week where Stafford's very good versus the blitz. He's very good versus the blitz, right? Let's look at these numbers once again. Let's see if I can pull them up. Do I have the numbers? So again, versus the blitz, Stafford has been absolutely amazing. Here it is. So 5+ rushers, 72 completion percentage, 14 touchdowns, 0 picks, and only sacked 8 times. The play of the game was Stafford under a blitz, throwing the ball down the field to Cooper Kupp for the win, right? That was a blitz. 4 or less rushers, which the Niners send a lot. 66% completion, 27 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, 22 sacks. All of Stafford's interceptions have come from 4-man rushes. So that was what crippled Todd Bowles. He continuously decided to blitz Stafford. It didn't work. The Niners are going to send 4. They understand how to play the Rams. That's what they're going to do. Now, they don't have a solution for Cooper Kupp. Something I will say about that last matchup, which made it very impressive that the Niners won, is that the Niners didn't have Trent Williams on offense. They didn't have Kwan Williams on defense. So they had neither of those guys in the game. Now, Williams would be the nickel corner who most often covers Cooper Kupp. Kupp in the last game went 7 for 118 and 1 touchdown in the game. I think Kupp is going to get his. There's no question about it. It's kind of like Devontae Adams where you just kind of got to limit it. You got to limit it, double him in certain situations, and hope that your pass rush gets there, right? It's kind of what you got to do. And DeMeco Ryans has shown more of a capacity to be willing to double receivers like last week and to be willing to show more complex coverages, disguise his coverages, and do some different things in the back end to make a quarterback hold the ball for his pass rush to get there. And I've been thoroughly impressed with that. A big guy in this game is going to have to be Odell Beckham Jr. OBJ is going to have the big game here. He's going to get one-on-ones, and Stafford's going to have to look his way, and he's going to have to be the guy that's converting these third downs, that's creating the chunk plays. When Kupp is doubled, OBJ is the guy that's got to come through, especially with Van Jefferson being on the injury report. I look at Tyler Higbee as a guy that's not going to be a huge factor because Fred Warner is extremely good at taking away tight ends, and the Niners overall have been very good versus the tight ends in seasons past and this year. Now, a statistic, I know a lot of people love to hear these stats. The team that is 2-0 during the regular season in the playoffs when they rematch is winning this game 66% of the time. So 2 out of every 3 times a team plays in a rematch in the NFC Championship or in the playoffs, a third time, usually the team that's dominated the regular season also dominates the playoffs. Now, we saw this in 2 different perspectives last year. The Rams beat the Seahawks 3 times last year. They advanced to the second round. And the Bucs actually went the other way. So the Bucs were an example of the other way, where the Bucs beat the Saints after the Saints swept them during the regular season. So there's faith on both sides. If you're a Rams fan or you're a Niners fan, there's faith for both sides. But just the statistics suggest that the team that won twice in the regular season most often also wins during the playoffs. A big thing that I look at in this game is San Francisco, and I heard this from Eric Eager of PFF, San Francisco's motion and usage of motion and why it's such a difficult matchup for the Rams. And essentially the numbers that they ran over at PFF was that the Rams disguise coverages. So the Rams show their coverage pre-snap of what they're going to do post-snap less than anybody in the NFL. So basically, what they're showing pre-snap is not going to be what they're actually doing. And this is something that worked versus Tom Brady. But when you play a team like the 49ers, who use a lot of motion on offense more than anyone in the NFL, motion is a way of indicating your coverage, right? It's a way of indicating your coverage. It's a way of getting a defense to shift into what they're actually going to be playing. So therefore, the disguise of what the Rams are trying to show doesn't really work to the same level. Because if you motion a guy from left to right or right to left or whatever you're going to do, it makes a defense respond a certain way based on what they're doing. So that is something he brought up, which has made it really difficult for the Rams defense to be able to beat the Niners because of Kyle's usage of motion. Essentially, at the end of the day, what does this game come down to me? It comes down to the Rams' ability to rely on Matthew Stafford throughout the game the same way that they did the Bucs. And if you get ahead, can you hold on to the lead and not remain conservative? The Rams too many times have been conservative when they get ahead. They did that versus the Bucs. They did that versus the Niners. Now, you're not playing Tom Brady this time around, but you are playing a team that has shown they can come back on you. And I feel like the Rams have to rely on Stafford on early downs to get Stafford out of bad third and longs versus this defense, because they're not going to be able to run the ball in this game. The Rams are not going to be able to run the ball. They've got to realize that before the game starts, and they've got to shift towards a pass-heavy script to win this game. The Niners, on the other hand, they've essentially got to do what they do on offense. Run the ball, run it right at the Rams. They've got to use their motion, use their play action, and specifically target the middle of the field, which is where the Rams have problems and where the Niners specifically are very good at attacking. So in many ways, I think that this is one where I came into the week super impressed with how I watched the Rams play versus Tampa Bay. But oftentimes we can get caught up in how a team looks versus a different team. And it just so happened that the Rams are a difficult matchup for Tampa Bay. But I think it's the reverse with the Niners. I think the Niners are the Rams' kryptonite. And from what I've seen this season, it's very hard for me to get out of my head what I've seen this year from this matchup. And this matchup to me favors the Niners. So I'm going to take San Francisco right now. I'm going to take San Francisco to win 23-20. At the beginning of the week, I was pretty heavily on the Rams. But the more that you look at these games, the more that you look at these matchups, it just feels like the 49ers are that fight that the Rams have a really difficult time dealing with. So that is the way I see it. I think the Rams can win this game. Don't get me wrong, and I wouldn't be surprised if they won. It's a really difficult game to pick. But they're going to have to get the best Matthew Stafford they've gotten all year. They're going to have to improve their run defense. And they're going to have to find a solution for Deebo Samuel, who's killed them, and this Shanahan attack, which has absolutely shown that they can dismantle this team. So if the Rams can weather the storm of the Niners pass rush and get more pressure on Jimmy than they have in the past and get them into those third down situations where they can afford to send Von Miller in the house, then they have a chance to win this game. There's no doubt. The other thing to factor in here is, what will the home field atmosphere be like? Will the Rams fans show up? Because the last time they played, this was a Rams away game. Go back and listen to the crowd. And they've changed some things with their tickets, and they've found a way to get more Rams fans into the stadium this time around. So maybe that will help. But Niners fans are going to find a way. They're going to get in that stadium, and it's going to be like a neutral site. So I think the home field is sort of negated in this game. I think it's going to be a fascinating matchup between two very good coaches, but Kyle has consistently shown that he can take it to McVay. And until I see McVay beat Shanahan, I can't side with him, even though he's got the better quarterback. And that is the way that he's got to win this game, is trust that quarterback to win the game. If he doesn't, they're going to lose. And if Stafford if he doesn't live up to it, they're going to lose as well. So I've got the Niners in a defensive battle somewhat, 23-20, very close game at the end of things. I've had the Niners. I've picked them every round. I'm continuing to go with the Niners here. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a good game, man. It's going to be a good game. I could see either of these teams going to the Super Bowl and winning the Super Bowl, by the way. I think both of these teams would be challenging matchups for Kansas City. I would love to see the Niners and Chiefs play in a rematch of 2 seasons ago. And I would also love to see Matthew Stafford in his first ever Super Bowl as well. So let me know in the comment section what you guys think. Who's going to win the NFC Championship? Who's going to win the AFC Championship? Thank you guys for watching. It's Mitch. Don't forget to Gronk spike that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Becca says she wouldn't like to see it. Joe's got the Chiefs over the Niners. Andrew's got the Niners to win. Ramifications got the Rams to win. Either way, though, guys, I think it's going to be a one-score game. No matter what happens, no matter who wins it between the Niners and the Rams. It's going to be a one-score game. It's the last field goal. It's a touchdown drive at the end. Something at the end of the game. It's not going to be a blowout. I would be shocked either way if it was a blowout. Could I see the Niners beating the Chiefs? Yes, I could. I think that could happen. And the main reason I would say that is because I think the Niners offense is better than 2 years ago, and I think the Chiefs defense is worse than 2 years ago. San Francisco has struggled a bit more in the run game, but I think part of that is to do, well, actually not really. I mean, in the Dallas game, they were pretty good running the ball, especially because Dallas, went all out to really stop it. They did have a tough time moving it versus the Packers, but a lot of that also had to do with the weather too, right? And they couldn't really throw the ball, I think, in a easier environment. And then also, again, Ultra, you got to go back to the games that they've played against each other. And in both games they've played against each other, the Niners have pushed them around. So that means more to me than the recent games that they've played, even versus the Packers and versus the Cowboys and all that. But it's a nice weather game. There's no weather impacting this game, so that opens up the passing game for Jimmy in this one. And Jimmy has shown that he can play well versus the Niners as well. And Jimmy showed up at the end of the Packers game. I mean, I don't hate it. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. It's Mitch. Don't forget to subscribe. Gronk spike the like button. Check out Underdog Fantasy. Oh yeah, let's do that right now. Let's do some pick'em. I almost forgot about that. Let's do some Underdog pick'em. So you guys can still ask me some questions if you like. Ask me questions. What do you guys want to ask me? Best game time food? Well, if you've noticed lately, I haven't really been eating during games because I'm on stream. But best game time food, that's tough. I think pizza is a staple, bro. You can't go wrong with pizza. Nachos is a good one. Wings is a good one. What the heck is going on? This is frustrating. Oh my God. Becca says wings and beer. Isaac says, will Mike McDaniel resolve the Dolphins' offensive problems if he becomes the head coach? Probably not right away, but you would hope. I watch my games on TV. Ultra says, daily reminder the Bucs would be playing Sunday if Arians wasn't an idiot. That is true. But they'd probably lose this week. They just so injured, to be honest with you. Bengals versus 49ers Super Bowl, says Deshaun. Lenny isn't confident this week? Will the Badger play this weekend? I think so. I don't know for sure, but I think so. Okay, this is so weird. Not working. Is Stafford a coach killer? No. Will the Chiefs cover? Probably. But there's a lot of... It feels like 7 points is a lot, though. Doesn't it? Okay, there we go. Finally. Sorry, guys. It was asking for my location and stuff, and it wasn't letting me rock. So, I usually use it on my phone. The app is pretty good. So, again, Underdog Fantasy. Let's check it out. All right. Ooh, let's see what we got for over-unders here. Oh, I'm showing eCam. Look at that. I'm showing you guys behind the scenes here. That's better. Okay. So you see this? You see this? Okay, this is UnderdogFantasy.com. I use the app typically, okay? But this is the desktop version. And this is the Pick'em, okay? So this is what I was referring to with the Pick'em. I do this every week. I often post my Pick'ems on Patreon for you guys to check out on the $5 tier. Right now on Underdog, if you deposit $100, up to $100, they will match you. So if you deposit $100 right now, they will match you $100. So you can get $100 for free, and you can play here on Underdog Fantasy. So let's look what we got going for the NFL. So they've got over-unders, rivals, which is like, okay, let's pick who's going to get more passing yards, Joe Burrow or Patrick Mahomes, okay? Who's going to get more rushing yards? And then they've got a plus, right? Plus 21.5, Joe Burrow, Pat Mahomes. Receiving yards, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, etc., right? You can also do this for NBA, NHL, soccer, college basketball, and more. So let's do one right now, okay? And as you can see on the right, you've got a multiplier. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can go up 5 picks, and 5 picks would be times 20. So let's see. We got Elijah Mitchell, Deebo Samuel, rushing plus receiving yards. Damn, why does Deebo seem very, underrated here? Is it just me? I think Deebo's a good take there. What do you guys think? What do you guys think, Deebo? I know that Elijah's plus 11.5, but I kind of think Deebo's the way to go. Completions, Jimmy plus 4.5, Stafford. Ooh, Jimmy might be a good go there. Rushing yards, I don't know. Oh, Deebo's the favorite, but Elijah is plus 11.5. So Deebo's got to outgain Elijah Mitchell by 12 yards. Rushing yards, I have no idea between Garoppolo and Stafford. Probably Stafford, I would think, right? But that's kind of risky. I don't know. Is it risky? I don't know. Is Stafford like a much better runner than Jimmy? Passing yards, 51.5 for Jimmy G versus Stafford. I'd probably lay off that. Rushing yards, Cam Akers versus Elijah Mitchell. I feel like Elijah Mitchell. I kind of feel like Elijah Mitchell's going to outgame Cam Akers by more than 13.5 yards, but I could be wrong about that. Let's put me in the corner here. Receiving yards. Deebo plus 51.5 versus Kupp. Receptions, Deebo versus Odell. Receiving yards, Odell versus Kittle. Those ones seem close. Receiving touchdowns, you're flipping a coin. Ayuk versus Higbee. Receiving yards. I don't know if I love any of these, to be honest with you. Receptions, plus 5.5. That's pretty good. I mean, 5.5? Holy smokes. Let's check the over-under, see what we got. Joe Burrow, 8.5 rushing yards, 287. and a half passing yards. Joe Mixon, 61.5 rushing yards, 29.5 receiving yards. Becca likes Ayuk over Higbee. That's not a bad one. We'll think about that one. Chase to get a touchdown. That's not bad. Uzoma, 38.5 receiving yards. That might be a good one. Chase, 87.5 yards. Higgins, 68.5. Clyde, under 39.5 yards. Seems decent to me. Did Clyde play like versus the Bills? Let me see. Clyde had 7 rushes for 60 yards. Hill for a touchdown. I think I'm going to go with... I don't hate Becca's suggestion of Higbee and Ayuk. What do you guys think about Higbee versus Ayuk? But Higbee's plus 9.5 here. Damn. These are actually tough, to be honest with you. Pringle, 36.5 yards. Juwan Jennings over 25.5 might not be a bad bet. He had a good game the first time they played. Wouldn't you think he would play again in this one? I'm gonna go over on Jennings. Maybe. I'll put that there for now. Stafford. Is he gonna throw a pick, guys? Is Stafford gonna throw a pick in this game? Is he gonna throw a pick? Cam Akers, 18.5 receiving yards. Van Jefferson. He'll throw 2 picks. Okay, we're going to put Stafford with a pick on the board, unfortunately. Jimmy's not going to throw 2 passing touchdowns, is he? It says 1.5 here. I feel like under might not be a bad bet. He's not going to throw 2. When's the last time he even threw a touchdown? Phillip says he's going to throw 4, bro. Holy smokes. He's going to throw 5? Holy. What's wrong with Jennings? Becca, why you hating? Why you always hating? I feel like Kelsey to get more than 5 yards than Higgins isn't a bad. I'm gonna go with that. That feels like a decent one, to be honest with you. Completions, rush yards. Becca liked Stafford more rushing yards than Jimmy. Becca's a hater. Hater. Any of these you guys like? You guys got to help me out here. Jimmy throws W's. That's true. Where was my Jimmy under 1.5? Wait, how many do I have? So I have 4 now. Becca, you just hate. Chase to get a touchdown? Is he going to get a touchdown? Receiving. It's got to be receiving. Yash thinks Burrow's going to have more passing yards than Mahomes. I don't know if I can gamble on that, Yash. You really think so? You're a bold man, Yash. He did last game. Chase could have more than 87.5 yards. But they might just double him the whole game, though. I don't know. This is tough, guys. I need one more choice here. Under Higbee, 40.5 yards. What do you guys think? Cam Akers over 18.5 receiving yards. Why? Give me a reason. Nothing on defenses. We got basketball. Oh, man. My bad. Uzoma. I don't mind Uzoma over 38.5. How many yards did he have in the first game? Chase just went off in the first game. That's my problem with the first game. I don't remember Higgins having 62 yards. Okay, for Yash, let's go with CJ over 38.5. How about that? So our card is going to look like this, guys. Kelsey, more receiving yards than Higgins. Debo, more rush receiving yards than Elijah Mitchell. CJ Uzoma, over 38.5. My guy, Jennings, Becca's least favorite player, over 25.5 receiving yards. And Stafford's going to throw a pick to us, guys. So how much should I put on this? What's $10? $200? $20 is $400. What are we feeling here? $50 is $1,000. Should I just go all in? $11. Okay, Becca said $11. Why 11? That's so random. Now let's make it $12. Well, one up Becca. All right. We're in, guys. $12. I can share my picks. All right, guys. That is it. Check out Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy, link in the description. Again, you could deposit up to $100 and they'll match you up to $100. And they've got some awesome pick'ems and tournaments over there, so check it out. Link in the description. Use the code BLV when you sign up. It's Mitch. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the Discord. Link in the description. Peace. Enjoy the games.